There are moments when silence feels heavier than any word you could ever say. You sit in a room filled with the echoes of everything unspoken, the arguments you never voiced, the grief you never confessed, the truths that tremble behind your calm expression. You wonder if silence is cowardice or mastery. Marcus Aurelius would have called this the training ground of the soul, a place where strength does not roar, but breathes quietly in the shadows of restraint. He wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it." But what is this strength that stands unmoved? Is it a refusal to feel, or the courage to feel without being destroyed? Imagine a Roman emperor, ruler of a vast, turbulent world, sitting alone before dawn, writing in his private journal. No audience, no applause, only the quiet scratching of ink against parchment. The world called him powerful, yet he wrote to himself about humility, patience, and control. In that solitude, Marcus Aurelius was not a ruler, he was a student of his own mind. He understood something we often forget, that silence is not the absence of power. It is power refined. To restrain one's tongue when anger burns behind it. To endure misunderstanding without rushing to defend one's name. To observe the chaos of others and remain grounded within one's own reason. That is a form of strength the world rarely applauds because it cannot be seen. Silence, in his philosophy, is not merely the withholding of speech. It is the deliberate act of returning to the self. It is standing before the storms of life and asking, "What within me cannot be shaken?" We live in an age that worships noise, the ceaseless chatter of opinion, the desperate need to be seen, heard, validated. But the Stoics saw noise as the great dissolver of the soul. To them, every reaction, every emotional outburst, was a surrender of sovereignty. They taught that the greatest victory is the one won over oneself. Yet silence can be terrifying. When you stop speaking, when you stop reacting, you begin to hear the faint tremors beneath your thoughts, the fear of insignificance, the ache for recognition, the hunger to matter. To embrace silence is to face these inner specters without flinching. Perhaps this is why so few truly understand it. Because silence demands self-confrontation. It strips away distraction and leaves you standing before the rawness of your own being. Marcus understood that if a man cannot stand peacefully in his own company, he is not yet free. So he learned to converse with his own mind instead of the world. He wrote not for others but to discipline the chaos within. He knew that the voice of reason is quiet, that wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers, and only those who have stilled their inner noise can hear it. This was his strength, not in how he commanded armies or legislated empires, but in how he ruled himself. When you next find yourself swallowed by silence, when your words die on your tongue and the world feels unbearably loud, ask yourself, is this emptiness, or is it space being cleared for clarity? Is this weakness, or the quiet formation of an inner fortress? Nietzsche once wrote, "Silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous." But Marcus might have smiled at that paradox, because for him, silence was not the suppression of truth, it was its incubation. In the stillness between thought and speech, strength takes shape. The rock does not shout at the sea. It simply remains, and in doing so, it teaches us what it means to endure. There is a war that every thoughtful person fights, the war between what should be said and what must remain unspoken. It is not fought with weapons or words, but within the boundaries of one's own restraint. Every moment of anger, every injustice witnessed, every insult endured silently, becomes a battlefield where silence and expression clash like ancient rivals. Marcus Aurelius knew this war well. He lived among men who schemed, flattered, and betrayed. As emperor, his voice could command life or death. Yet, in Meditations, he reminds himself, "You always own the option of having no opinion." In that simple sentence lies an act of rebellion, to choose stillness when the world demands a reaction. But silence is not always noble. Sometimes it hides fear, complicity, or repression. To remain quiet in the face of cruelty can make one complicit in it. To withhold truth from those who need it can be a subtle form of cowardice. Silence, therefore, is double-edged. It can be a sanctuary or a prison, depending on the mind that wields it. Marcus did not advocate silence as withdrawal from the world, but as mastery within it. To him, silence was not inaction. It was control. He knew that words carry weight. Once released, they cannot be recalled. So he measured them not by impulse, but by necessity. If a word did not serve truth, justice, or reason, he let it dissolve back into silence. And yet, every philosopher who writes of restraint also knows the cost of it. There are nights when silence burns like a wound, when you wish you had spoken, when the withheld word becomes a stone in your chest. The Stoic ideal sounds serene on parchment, but in practice, it is forged through pain. Think of the times you've swallowed your anger to maintain peace, the times you've chosen understanding over revenge, the times you've endured the ignorance of others without striking back. These are not moments of weakness, though the world may call them so. They are moments of quiet strength, the invisible victories of the inner life. Still, not all silence is strength. There is a silence that is fearful, the kind that keeps the abused from speaking, the oppressed from resisting, the thinker from questioning. Marcus's silence was not that. His was the silence of discernment, the pause between reaction and wisdom. He taught that silence is powerful only when it springs from clarity, not from fear. In the modern world, that distinction has blurred. We equate volume with conviction, speed with relevance. We live in the theater of opinions, where silence is mistaken for ignorance. But the Stoic mind knows that truth does not need to shout, it simply is. Carl Jung once observed, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." The same can be said of silence. Beneath its apparent stillness lies a hidden structure, a discipline of attention. To remain quiet is to listen not only to others but to oneself. It is to observe one's own emotions rise and fall without becoming enslaved by them. Marcus understood this inner listening. His private writings were confessions, not of sin but of self-awareness. In them, he interrogated his impulses, corrected his ego, and purified his intentions. Silence was the crucible in which his better nature was refined. Yet this battle never ends. Even the wisest among us are tempted to break silence for validation, to assert our presence, to defend our pride. Every confrontation, every misunderstanding, becomes a test. Do we react and scatter our energy outward, or do we hold our center and allow time to speak on our behalf? In truth, silence and expression are not enemies. They are partners in an eternal dance. Expression gives shape to truth, but silence gives it depth. Without one, the other becomes hollow. Marcus found balance not in muteness, but in measured speech, the kind that emerges only after silence has done its work. For him, silence was the rehearsal, speech the performance, and wisdom was knowing when the curtain should rise. There comes a point in every soul's journey when the world outside grows too loud to bear, when opinions collide like thunder, when injustice calls for outrage, when the noise of life threatens to drown the voice within. It's in this chaos that Marcus Aurelius built what he called his inner citadel, a fortress of mind where no insult could wound him, no praise could corrupt him, and no loss could unmake him. He realized something radical, that silence was not merely a reaction to the world's noise. It was a declaration of independence from it. To choose silence was to reclaim sovereignty over one's inner state, to refuse to let the external dictate the internal. Most people think of freedom as the ability to act, to speak, to move without restraint. Marcus inverted that idea. To him, true freedom meant not being compelled, not by anger, desire, or fear. Freedom was not the liberty to express every impulse, but the mastery to decide which impulses deserved expression at all. And this is where silence becomes sacred, because silence at its core is the sound of self-command. It is the pause between feeling and action where reason awakens and asks, "Is this worthy of me?" In the stillness of that pause, the human being discovers his true domain, not in controlling others, nor in bending fate, but in ruling himself. Picture the emperor again, surrounded by generals, courtiers, and the endless machinery of empire. Outside, war brews. Within, betrayal festers. Yet there he sits, writing quietly, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That single sentence carries the weight of an entire philosophy, the idea that our thoughts, not the world, determine our suffering. It's a truth so simple that we overlook its profundity. For if we truly believed it, nothing external could enslave us again. But Marcus did not arrive at this serenity by denial. He faced pain, loss, and exhaustion as any man would. He buried children. He waged wars he did not wish for. He endured betrayal by those he trusted most. And still, he wrote of patience, compassion, and gratitude. How? Because he understood that silence is not the absence of emotion. It is the alchemy that transforms emotion into understanding. In silence, anger becomes insight, grief becomes humility, pain becomes clarity. Yet, the path to such transformation is steep. When we are hurt, the first impulse is to speak, to defend, accuse, justify. But Marcus would tell us, to react immediately is to remain a slave to the moment. Between stimulus and response lies the field of freedom, and silence is the gate to it. Modern life has all but erased that gate. We live in constant reaction. Tweets, arguments, opinions fired off like arrows in a digital coliseum. Everyone speaks. Few reflect. The Stoic ideal seems almost alien now, in a culture where silence is interpreted as indifference. But perhaps that's precisely why it's needed most. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps of Auschwitz, later echoed this Stoic wisdom when he wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Marcus would have nodded in recognition. For both men, the mind was the last refuge, a fortress that no tyrant, no chaos, no tragedy could breach. And yet, a fortress is not built once and left standing. It must be maintained, inspected, repaired. Silence is the daily labor of that maintenance, the introspective stillness where one clears the debris of resentment, envy, and pride. In that quiet labor, we begin to see the world differently. The insults of others lose their sting. The praise of others loses its sweetness. What remains is the steady pulse of one's own integrity, calm, unshaken, sufficient. To live this way is to be untouchable, not because you are hard, but because you are whole. The world may shout, but inside your citadel, you hear only the whisper of reason, and it says, "Hold fast. You are free." Silence, for Marcus Aurelius, was never cold detachment. It was not the armor of pride, but the clothing of compassion. In a world of rulers who thundered their power, he led by restraint, and within that restraint was mercy. His silence was not born of indifference, but of understanding. It was the gentleness that comes from seeing through the chaos of others into the fragility that lies beneath. To rule the Roman Empire was to live surrounded by ego and intrigue. Yet Marcus wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But they are my kin." The line drips with weary wisdom. He did not hide from human ugliness. He met it with quiet acceptance. To him, compassion was inseparable from silence. Because to listen, truly listen, one must be silent first. Only in stillness can you see others as they are, unclouded by your own judgments. And when you understand them, their cruelty ceases to surprise you. Their malice ceases to provoke you. You realize that the anger of others is not personal. It is pain disguised as pride. This realization transforms silence from restraint into empathy. It's not that you withhold your words because you fear conflict. It's that you see no need for it. The one who shouts is already burning. The one who understands has no need to add fuel. Marcus's silence, then, was not the silence of withdrawal. It was the silence of seeing too deeply. He saw that everyone, even his enemies, was acting according to what they believed was good. Ignorance, not evil, was the cause of most suffering. To hate the ignorant was to become ignorant oneself. In his stillness, he found space to forgive, to think clearly, to choose his response instead of being swept away by instinct. It is a kind of power we rarely admire today, the power to be kind in the face of cruelty. The modern world romanticizes fire, passion, outrage, the roar of conviction. But Marcus knew that real fire consumes quietly. He wrote that the soul of a good man should be like a bright fire, constant and mild, not bursting into flame and then dying out. That is what silent strength looks like, an enduring warmth, not a violent blaze. But compassion born from silence is not weakness. It is forged through pain. You can only forgive deeply once you have suffered deeply. You can only understand others once you've faced your own darkness. And Marcus did. He watched the plague devastate his empire. He buried his children. He endured betrayal from his closest friends. Yet never once did he allow bitterness to harden him. Instead, he looked inward and wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." Those words reveal a quiet defiance, the resolve to remain gentle in a brutal world. That is the essence of Stoic compassion. To endure without hatred, to persist without despair, to act with goodness even when goodness gains nothing. In silence, we learn this paradox, that strength and softness are not opposites, but two faces of the same truth. The oak and the stream both survive the storm, but in different ways. One stands unmoved, the other flows around the violence. Marcus's wisdom lies in knowing when to be each. The German poet Rilke once wrote, "If your daily life seems poor, do not blame it. Blame yourself. Tell yourself you are not poet enough to call forth its riches." Marcus might have said the same about humanity. If you find people unkind, perhaps you have not listened deeply enough to their suffering. To be silent, then, is not to retreat from others, but to make space for them, to meet them without judgment, to absorb their noise without echoing it back. It is to recognize that we are all stumbling through the same confusion, searching for the same peace. When you understand that, silence no longer feels like isolation. It feels like connection, the kind that does not require words. And in that connection, a gentler kind of strength begins to rise, one that does not conquer, but heals. In the end, all empires crumble. The marble cracks, the statues fall, and the names that once filled the air with thunder fade into dust. Yet what remains of Marcus Aurelius is not his crown, his armies, or his decrees. It is the quiet tone of his thoughts, echoing through time. The strength of his silence outlived the roar of his reign. It is strange, isn't it, how the most enduring legacies are not the loudest ones. The noise of conquest fades, but the calm of wisdom lingers. The scrolls Marcus wrote alone, never meant for the world's eyes, became a scripture for souls centuries later. His silence, once private, once invisible, became the voice of endurance itself. This is the paradox of stillness, that what seems empty can become eternal. Marcus understood that all speech, all action, eventually dissolves into silence. Death is the final stillness, the quiet return of all noise to the void. But to meet that silence without fear, to accept it as the natural rhythm of existence, is to live in harmony with the universe itself. He wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things. Soon all things will have forgotten you." For most, such a thought would inspire despair. But for Marcus, it was liberation. If everything fades, then what remains is not the impression you leave upon the world, but the peace you cultivate within. The silence of the wise becomes a sanctuary that even death cannot disturb. And so, strength in silence is not about suppression, but surrender, not to weakness, but to reality. It is the willingness to let life be as it is, without resistance, without needing to shout your name into eternity. We resist this truth because silence terrifies us. We fear what it reveals, our smallness, our impermanence, our inability to control what comes next. But Marcus's life whispers a different message, that the acceptance of silence is the acceptance of being human. To walk calmly toward the inevitable is not resignation. It is grace. When you realize this, the world changes. You stop fighting every insult, every loss, every misunderstanding. You learn that you cannot make others understand you, and you stop needing them to. You stop chasing noise to feel alive, and you begin to find life in quiet moments. The early light through a window, the sound of your own breath, the space between heartbeats. It is in these moments that you touch what Marcus called the divine within. Presence not outside of you, but in you, steady, rational, unshaken. That presence does not need to speak. It simply is. In the silence of that awareness, all things find their place. Joy and sorrow, triumph and failure, life and death. You see that they are not enemies, but waves in the same sea. You realize that strength was never about domination, it was about equilibrium. The modern soul, restless and overstimulated, longs for this equilibrium but cannot name it. We crave silence not because we wish to escape the world, but because we wish to hear ourselves again. Beneath the static of modern life, something ancient still calls. The same voice Marcus heard in the stillness of his tent under the Roman night says, "Be still. You are enough." The French philosopher Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." Marcus conquered that inability. He turned solitude into sovereignty. His silence was not the silence of loneliness, but of completeness. And perhaps that is the final lesson of his life, that the highest form of strength is not to speak, not to act, not even to win, but simply to be with unwavering presence through everything. For when the world finally falls silent, what remains is not the echo of what you said, but the quiet strength of who you were. And in that silence, eternal and vast, the voice of Marcus Aurelius still whispers, "Be like the rock."